Hi there guys, this is One Who Gets Crits, Commander Jaime, and I'm gonna show you a deck profile. Got second place at my locals recently. It's been a while since I played Vanguard. Last time was the BWC in Chicago, and thought I'd play something different. So I decided to try out Nightrose actually competitively with the new support that just came out. So one of the things that I wanted to mention first was that I got inspiration from another card fighter in the Vanguardians group. His name is Joseph Wilmore. You guys may have seen him here posted in there, so feel free to give him a shout out too. Basically, I took most of his build and I had some different choices due to preference or availability of cards as well. And so why Nightrose? Nightrose is Granblue, and one of the things I like about Granblue is you can reuse your resources from the drop, and that itself is still powerful. And what Nightrose needed for a long time was a stride that can bring multiple units for one counterblast, and the new stride Gosh brought that into play, and so that deck became even stronger, and so I thought I'd try it out. Cool. So I'm going to go over the deck profile, and then I'll follow up with matchups in case you guys are curious. So my starter was Grenache. Most decks with Nightrose do play Grenache as the starting Vanguard. I completely missed that Joseph's starting Vanguard was Peter the Ghosty, and for some reason I just didn't see it. So I automatically assumed Grenache. But Grenache is really good, and just in general for flipping damage and making sure that you can still do your plays next turn. And most of the time what I did is that when I pull him out starting as a booster, instead of like behind the Vanguard, I did behind a column essentially. And then once I actually rolled to the next grade and actually attacked, I would put him up and have him with a booster, such as like Bale or Negro Bone or Rampage ideally, because Negro Bone can actually kill it and bring it back later on once your Generation Break live, and then Rampage Shade can go into Soul and draw you a card, so it's like a temporary booster. And the funny thing is that they won't kill this guy because they know that they don't want him in the drop, because you'll just get free on flips and stuff. So they keep him alive, and then as you ride to grade 3, you're still applying a column pressure effectively too. And if you run stance, you can get another free attack if they haven't hit a trigger too. So that was one of the things that I did with the starter. Kind of funny. So for the grade 3s, I played, of course, for Nightrose Bay. Her Generation Break 2 skill is really good now because we have Gosh. He enables GB2 after first stride, and she can use her skill to mill more to dig a little deeper in the deck for resources to use in the next turn, and also bring back a rear guard for defensive purposes. And really busted defensive purposes such as like Cannoneer and Negro Lazy. That way you can pick and choose with Negro Lazy to bring back Cannoneer, or Mick the Ghosty and family for like 10k base shield essentially, or kill rear guard, thanks to the new G guard Lily. Her stride skill, of course, brings back a unit from the drop and actually keeps it, unlike Night Miss. So I got quickly used to the fact that now I can have rear guards on board and they don't die. So that was kind of cool. Yeah, so she's really good, and that's the starting Vanguard. So I'm also playing 2 copies of Nightstorm and 2 copies of Gas Dragon. Nightstorm's there for enabling extra attacks. He's really cool. He's an 11k attacker, so he could hit Vanguard by himself, and then you just call something else on a circle that he's not on and keep going. So you can combo off with like bringing back column bards and using that skill to bring something where he was on, and then that booster can now boost the new unit that column bard brought, just to enable you more attacks. This could be like first turn as well, like stride wise. So you can Obadiah or Gash and just go ham. The other grade 3 is Gas Dragon. He's there to make that powerful column with a 7k booster. He hits 26k, and so he can be effective when you just need a big column as your final attack after you attack with Vanguard, so you can put the triggers on. He's also there for like the Nightrose strike turn to hit even harder if you really need to. Otherwise, you can just go into something else to either enable more attacks or just a regular column and go from there as well. And they're both really good to ditch for paying the cost of stride too, so that's worth to note. And so that's why I played them. They enable different purposes such as multi-attacking and hitting high numbers. For the grade 2s, I started with 3 Negrooks, and I felt it was just right for that number. 16k beast stick by himself and hollow, so you can keep bringing him back, reusing him. And if you call them early game, he's an 11k. The hollow ability gives the additional 5k, which is still key, and it threw some people off at the tournament. Like, what? He still hits? It's like, yeah. So he's really important if you want to bring him back with like Night Storm or Negro Bone after an attack where their Vanguard is like 16k base because of a trigger. He could still hit and apply pressure. So the next grade 2s was Negril. Joseph had 3. I didn't have 3. I only had 2. So I tacked in another Columbard, which I'll show you the ratio after this. But he's really useful, either hand or drop, so you can get a column or just set up another row properly. And at the end, if he's hollowed, he refunds himself cost-wise, so you can get that extra counterblast again for next turn and abuse him. Defensive purposely, you can bring him back with Nightrose, so that way he's there on the field if you need to kill him with Lily. And if you do, you can bring him back, use a skill to bring Mick the Ghosty or Cannoneer of your choice to use their effects on your opponent's turn, which is really cool and useful. So that's why he's pretty good. And so, like I mentioned, I bumped up the ratio of Columbard to 3 to fill for the Negril that was missing. It was 2 Columbards, which I would pick 2 as well. He's good for enabling multiple attacks during the battle phase. And sometimes he's there just to put him on early game, and he works once his generation break live. So it's like a threat, you know. So your opponent feels compelled, like they have to kill that rear guard, which is kind of ironic because, you know, Granblue doesn't really care about that, but they're gonna try to kill it so you can work for it to bring it back. But still, it helps with like enabling more attacks and also, I guess, in a sense, defensive pressure. So playing 2 Cannoneers, he's really good. He kills rear guards and you draw a card if he's hollowed. He's there for also the defensive play against like big threats like Wiseman from Genesis, or just big columns that you can just easily kill. He's really just useful in general. You know, if you gotta kill some pesky rear guard, just kill it. And on top of that, you just get a free card. So playing him 2 is fine. You don't want to overdo him. There's not a lot of times you want to use his skill most of the time. You just want to use it at the right time, and I think 2 was right. The text for the grade 2s, his list didn't have King Serpent, but I added one, and so my reasoning with King Serpent is because I've used them in the past with like 7Cs. He's really good to make things free because he flips, and he also soul charges, which is big. And I thought his skill was even more relevant now because of Gauche. And that way you can get the extra unit actually called. And what's funny is that you can strike Gauche and then use Nightrose skill first to bring him back, get the soul charge, and on flip, make Nightrose free. Nightrose makes him a 10k, and then you can proceed with Gauche to get the extra unit that you wouldn't have. And what is relevant is that if he becomes a 10k, you can have it boosted with the Negro Bone and hit 17k against the Vanguard. And then you can kill him and reuse him like the next turn to do the same thing if you want to, or just whenever you feel like you need the actual flip or the free unit in a sense. Poker is there for the Link Joker matchup, nothing much to it. You have to play it, otherwise you kind of like auto-lose, which sucks. But yeah, I will play another unit or something. I'll maybe, I don't know, another King Serpent or another like Negro kind of thing. So grade 1s, you want to play the flip Plegie. Helps you get your own flips, so you can have more counter blast for the next turn. And honestly, if you mill him for whatever reason, like Nightrose's skill, you can guard the next turn, and then you already on flip. So in a sense, he's useful in the drop, but you don't want to, lose him in the drop. The next grade ones, I play for Tommy the Ghosty brothers and Stride Fighter. You want to stride, and so 8 grade 3s and 4 Stride Fighter seem fine, and so I wanted to keep it that way. You also want to make sure you ride Nightrose. You don't want to ride Gas Dragon or Nightstorm. Nightstorm's not so bad, but when you do Gas Dragon, it doesn't do anything for you, and it doesn't have the Nightrose name, so it hurts your deck even more when it's dependent on the Nightrose name, such as like units Negro Lazy and Negro Bone. So I also just picked this up at the tournament, which is kind of cool, like an SP. It costs a lot, but I thought it was worth it. Good thing I got it through a trade. Other great ones, play Negro Bone and Bale. If I can show you because of the reflection. So with Bale, he's good. With Nightrose, basically, when he is sent to the drop zone from rear guard, he can unflip. If you have a Nightrose Vanguard, he also bottom decks himself as cost, so you have, like, I guess you deck out slower. So it's useful, and he's also a ghosty target for Obadiah, which is really good because you can bring him behind Obadiah, and then you can always just kill it with Negril for the G guard, and becomes free essentially, And then you can always just bring it back too, which is kind of cool and funny. And then Negro Bone is really good because he enables more attacks, and honestly, like, playing 2 was enough. I thought you would want to play more just to see him more, but I felt like it was enough, and I could see why Joseph picked 2 as well. And so Negro Bone is there for, boosting units and just generating more attacks. What more can I say, really? So that's it for the grade 1s. Now for the grade 0s. 4 Rough Seas Banshee for the crit, and for into soul and draw effect. She's really good in filling the soul for Gauche. That way you can get more units out of his effect on first stride. And you could also bring it back with whatever skill from Nightrose or Gauche. That way you can just get a free draw if you really need to. And so what I like to do is put it in soul early game, and then when I do the Gauche turn, I can bring it back and then just put it back into soul and get another draw. So you get a free card, and then it refills your soul partially for units like Negro Lazy, for example. So 4 crit, and then 4 more additional crits. Rampage Shade. She's done Nightrose crit. Really good. It's what Nightrose needed. Another unit that can go into soul and help Gauche out, and then also draw, which is important in Nightrose. I was playing Nightrose before the support, and I felt like its hand size was kind of mediocre, especially compared to 7Cs. And thanks to Rampage Shade, it's another unit that gives you the extra draw when you need it. If you need to bring it from the drop, it's a go-to unit, basically. And that's another unit that's actually useful in the drop too. That way, if you mill it by Nightrose's skill or for whatever reason, it's not totally wasted. So I also got this SP in the trade. Pretty happy. And I went the 4 stands route with Mick. Mick is really good. But I did notice out of the 4 rounds, I don't even think I even used the skill ones, honestly. And the reason is because you're bringing all these other grade 2s and grade 1s to chain attacks, and there may be a moment when you need to have the 10k boost, but it didn't come up as often, and it may be because Nightrose is able to counterblast so much in a single turn and refund itself because Grenache is there, As in 7Cs, you're not guaranteed Grenache unless you actually have him as your starting Vanguard, or you can waste your first stride as Obadiah, but that's kind of subpar compared to a first Night Mist stride. So his list had 2 stands and 2 additional crits. So I might go that route, noticing that I didn't really use his effect often enough at all. So, but Mick's still good. I mean, he's one of the best stand triggers in the game, I think, especially for Granblue. And then lastly, 4 heals. You know, regular standard. And I chose this art because I liked it. So now into the G zone. G zone, playing 2 Gauche. I picked one of them as SP as well in the trade. Really good. You want to go him as your first stride. Multiple reasons why. First reason, you can call a bunch of units with 1 counterblast on that turn, depending on how big your soul is, which usually 3 or 4 or more, which is I think 5. Yeah. So once you hit 3 or more, it's really beneficial. You build a field practically almost free, and then the reason I say free is because you have Grenache to flip later on, and because you have decent enough soul to make that happen, more than likely you use the crits to fill up the soul, and you can use Rampage's skill and Roughshe's skill again to go into the soul and then draw more cards instead. So you're building a field, and at the same time you're building your hand advantage, which is really good. And then from there, depending on the rear guards you soul blast in and what you got in, you know, the drop zone, your turn goes as normal, which could happen multiple attacks thanks to Negro Bone, Bar, Negril, you know, those kinds of things. And then at the end of the turn, they also it also enables Generation Break 2 for Nightrose, which can be really relevant against a matchup such as, like, I guess Gears, you know, so you can do the Mick play, or you can do the Cannoneer play for decks against, like, Wiseman, for example. And one thing to mention also was that his skill also gives plus 1,000 to the rear guards you bring back. So if you bring back, like, King Serpent, it becomes a 9k, or you bring back Mick, becomes a 4k, or a regular trigger, or whatever, like Rampage. Rampage will be the better example because it becomes a 5k, and you can use it to boost something like Necrobook, hitting like a 21 column. And then when you attack with Vanguard, it goes into soul to get you the draw, which is pretty good, I think. So he was my go-to stride if possible. Otherwise, you would have the Obadiah. And I do play Obadiah. I play 2 Obadiah. For the very reason, if you think that's the better first stride, or if you need to go later game for the second Obadiah to filter out triggers, then that's the play to go. And also, if you have a full field, it doesn't really make sense into going Gauche first stride. So this helps that, and you can do setup for the next turn or that very same turn. Notable things you could fish out are, like, if they bottom deck your Grenache with Gear Conical, you can bring it out back with him. You can get, like, Bale if you want to with 2 hollow units, so you can bring back Bale for free, and then you have him as, you know, Negril is free to G-Guard. So anything you need, he fishes out, essentially. And since it's Nightrose, you play for Nightrose copies in the G zone. Nightrose is the stride that enables even more attacks, which is really good. And sometimes, thanks to units like Negril and Columbard and Negro Bone and Nightstorm, you just get more attacks afterwards too if you bring them back, if you have enough counterblasts, which you can. Nightrose, you try to make that big push when you're at 4 or 5 damage if you can. Before that, you play it smart with Gauche because his was like 1 counterblast bring back like an entire field essentially. So that helps a lot with Nightrose because before players would take so much damage just to get as much as they can with Nightrose's skill and the other units too, which sucks because now you're at higher damage, you're more likely to have to guard even harder, and it's bad against decks that like have multiple attacks. And at the moment, Gears, if they see you at 5 damage, they're most likely gonna do a Metallica Phoenix strat again, just to promote extra attacks and loop Melon, and so they can get a shoot ton of attacks. So you gotta be careful with your damage and counterblast management. So Nightrose has become even more stronger as a finisher thanks to the support as well, and thanks to like Bale and what else, Rampage Shade. You can get advantage. You can like unflip during the battle phase, so you can spend another Counter Blast to get something else or enable something else. So Nightrose is really good. So one-offs, I am playing one Bandit Rum, one Blueheart, and one Sabreeze. So he had originally 2 Mareed, and I think he had Sabreeze. Yeah, he had Sabreeze. So Bandit Rum and Blueheart weren't his deck profile. So the reason I picked those is because in case you needed to like fix your field but didn't want to spend Gauche or something, Blueheart was there. Never used it. Bandit Rum is just the unhit stride for free. Never used it. And then Sabreeze, of course, is there for the grade 2 game, which is not too bad with Nightrose, because as soon as you stride, you can use Nightrose's skill to get something back. So that's like free, as long as you have enough Counter Blast, though, of course. So minimum is like 3 Counter Blasts. That way you pay the cost for Sabreeze, and you can do a Nightrose skill. But yeah, those are my 3 other strides. I'm playing 5 G Guardians because of that freedom, since I didn't have Mareed. And one of them is the Corpse Dragon, 2 of them is the Negril, and the Corpse Dragon is the 30k shield, mill 2, get +5. You don't want to do it more than once. You generally hurt yourself more that way, but it's there in case you really need it. It also helps if you feel like you need to set up a little more, but again, it's a mill, so it's luck at that point. Negril is there for like the 10k on top of 15k shield. It costs a Counter Blast, but thanks to like Grenache and like Bale, essentially is like free. And then it enables the play where you can bring something back with Nightrose, and again, Negril or Mick. So that's important. And 2, I think his logic was that it would come up more than once, in case he needed the extra shield, and I agree with that, and so I played 2 as well. So the 2 final G guards I played was the Cray Elementals, one Screw and one Dismal. Screw is because I felt like you may want to discard 1 card to get the additional 10k shield over a Counter Blast. Just depends on the situation you're in. You might be low face-up damage, and you might need it for next turn, so that might be the route. Now Nightrose can generate enough hands so that Screw isn't as costly as was before. Dismal is there to protect the rear guards. People are like, wait, why are you doing that in Granblue? But I asked that very question to Joseph, and I like his idea of it, where basically you can save usually Column Bard. That way you can use it for next turn without wasting Counter Blast to bringing it back. So you can use him and pay his Counter Blast skill to promote more attacks much more easily. And then again, Nightrose stride is 2 Counter Blast, so that goes a long way, having that extra Counter Blast face up. And so I tried it, and I think I might have saved a rear guard once. I can't remember, but it was there for that gimmick, I guess, and for that random, the police player with Laura. So now I guess let's go into the matchups. And what happened first round was I faced Gears. It was actually my friend Eduardo, and basically he made me go first, and I was applying pressure thanks to having like Grenache and like a Rampage in 1 column, as I rolled to like grade 1, grade 2, grade 3 kind of thing. And so kept attacking, and he tried to also call some rear guards to like help fend for that and attack me. And basically he was the first one at first stride, and I was okay with it because like since I had Rampage on board, I was okay with going to grade 3 first with Nightrose, and that way you can just scoop it back up and get that extra draw for the extra card to defend against Metallica Phoenix essentially. And Unfortunately, his hand was subpar. So his Metallica Phoenix was bad, and bad as in he called a Stride Fodder and a Chrono Jet, unfortunately. And of course, he still had the TikTok, but I took the first damage, and I just went to like a trigger, and I got 16k base basically, and there wasn't much he can do. I mean, the Stride Fodder actually just sat there standing and couldn't even hit it. So my turn, I did Obadiah because he sent Grenache, to space and time, and because of that, I was able to combo off with like Negro Bone, I believe, and just actually went from there because his hand was small because he called rear guards early on and he couldn't generate advantage during the Metallica Phoenix turn because of his setup. Game 2 was generally the same early game, but his first try Metallica Phoenix was much better, and of course he had Melon, and so I was able to take a amount hits. And then my first try was still Obadiah because, Grenache was swooped back, bottom deck, basically. And I was able to do multiple attacks, and that wasn't enough to kill him because he was able to generate advantage the prior turn. And he did Metallica Phoenix again because I was at 5 damage, and that's why I emphasize that players can go into Metallica Phoenix a second time. So he went from that. And then game 3... I went second, and I got grade stuck at 2. I hadn't seen any grade 3s at all, not even damage checked or anything. Not even in my mulligan, so I was just like, damn, I'm not seeing anything. And he was able to Sabreeze me, and I basically went to 5 damage with only 1 card in hand. It was a Stride Fodder. So all I needed to do was draw a Nightrose, and I drew a Negro Bone. So I couldn't even ride to grade 3 and Stride. I just was stuck at grade 2, and it was GG from there. So he got it. So what can you expect when you're grade stuck? Round 2, I faced Murakami. Wasn't sure what he was playing at first. I was hoping that he wasn't playing Vanquisher because it's a rougher matchup for Granblue because they bind from the drop, or they kill stuff and then bind. So basically, early game, he started calling rear guards, and I'm just like, okay. So I know Murakami doesn't really have an early game or like a way to generate back rear guards, so I was just doing rear guards to rear guards, and Vanguard can kill rear guards too, and he just got mad at me because I was attacking his rear guards, and I'm like, well, what are you going to expect? If you're going to call rear guards, you think I'm going to like give you all this damage because I know it's going to be super useful, and your rear guards get, big ass shit, basically, once you stride, so I might as well get rid of your rear guards and keep you at low damage, It's just the best way to play at that, matchup. And I didn't ride to grade 3 because I knew that he would have the advantage because his next turn would be ride to grade 3 and then stride first. And so I rerolled grade 2 so he couldn't, Sabreeze me and attack his remaining like rear guard and then the Vanguard to do more damage. And then the next turn, he rode Vermilion, the Legion one. And I was like, oh, so you're playing Vermilion, And so he couldn't do much. He called another rear guard for pressure, but nothing much, really. And then next turn, I just rolled a grade 3 and actually strode. I think I did Gash, and I got advantage as that turn went out. And I just won from that because he couldn't guard anything, really, because he called all his rear guards early on. So, game 2 went about the same route, and you would think he would learn, but he didn't. And the thing is, I rode to grade 3 first because I had the Rampage behind Grenache, as they call him. And so, I went first to stride, and I did a Gouge play as well, and generated some field and hand advantage, and put him to like 4 or 5 damage, I think. And his first stride was the unhit strike. That's what it was. Yeah. So basically, I let that not hit, and so I perfect guarded it, and that his Chitara was left, and I also guarded it so he wouldn't get the +1 essentially. So the next turn I did an Obadiah, and I actually just won from there, I think. Yeah. So round 3, I faced Fenrir Wiseman. I'm like, wow, am I lucky? Because, you know, I have access to the Cannoneer play to actually stop it and actually proceed to win. So, game one, basically, I applied constant pressure from the early game, and I kept it going to the stride level, and he wasn't able to successfully do any Wiseman combo at all. For whatever reason, I guess he just didn't have the resources to do it, or he couldn't get a proper setup, essentially. And basically, I was able to stride Nightrose by then and just win. And then game two, I kept the Cannoneer on board, of course. And what sucked though, I didn't have a heal trigger, so I was dependent on him if he actually attacked Cannoneer that turn, you know, on the Wiseman turn, which he won't. So essentially, I kind of bluffed him, and he didn't do the Wiseman turn that, you know, next turn. I was just like, oh, thank God, you know, that gives me a chance to win next turn. And I couldn't kill him next turn, but I also still kept the Cannoneer for that turn and actually got a heal trigger. So now I actually had the defensive play live, and he tried setting up Wiseman to a big enough number, and he had like 5 attacks with it, and I was just like, as soon as he attacked first with it, I just killed it with, you know, the Lilith play. So that kind of felt good. Actually do it in like in a tournament. As soon as I killed it, he just scooped because he knew he was dead next turn. Because, you know, Negrils does so many attacks, and he had barely any hand because he was focusing on Wiseman getting big enough, so he wasn't drawing from the Stride Fenrir skill. He was given +3 to him. So round 4 was Novas, and it was Extreme Battlers. And early on, we had calling out more rear guards, and they don't do anything really. There's a few units that they have, but it's like rush, so it really depends, I guess, on their stand triggers at that point. But he didn't see any, and I thought he purposely didn't ride to grade 3 because he went first, so that would give me the stride turn first. And I saw that, and I was just like, okay. So I rewrote grade 2 to make sure he didn't subbreeze me, and I, you know, applied pressure still that turn. And then the next turn, he's like, no, grade 3. And I was just like, whoa, wow, so you're actually grade stuck, you know. And he couldn't do much because by then he didn't really have effective rear guards to attack. So I lived that turn, and then I just ride a grade 3, and then I subbreeze him. And boy, that was like painful. I felt bad for the guy. And then game 2 was essentially the same thing. He didn't see his grade 3s at all either. And again, this time I went to grade 3 and actually subbreezed them because he gave me damage enough to do it and actually do a Nightrose skill as well. And I just went from there. So bad luck on him. Didn't even get the generation break or grade 3 at all, so that kind of sucked. But boy, subbreeze came into play. So that was actually useful. But yeah. So overall, I got second. And my friend Eduardo got first with Gears, and then my friend Jerry Brock got third with Messiahs. And boy, I was seeing him play Messiahs, and boy, with the new stride, they can do some crazy draw power on the first stride turn. So I thought that was cool. Yeah, so Granblue, one of the things that I noticed was that, you know, what's the Mick ratio. Maybe I do want to go to, you know, 10 crit and 2 Mick. Other things is I want to add a King Serpent if possible, just to consistently help improve the gauche turn, you know. And I picked up a third Negril from a trade, and I don't know if I should play him or not. I'm still debating on it. It's a good card, and it's useful to play because you get to pick and choose what you bring back on the defensive play as well, so that's important. And I might stick with Grenache as the starting Vanguard, but realistically, probably against like Clean Joker, I would switch to Peter the Ghosty for sure, and then main Grenache. But then that also makes the gauche turn maybe not as optimal, but I guess I have to like tinker with that. So those are my thoughts for the main deck at least. And the strides, people can play Marids, that's fine. But I don't feel like spending money on Marids because I feel like, I guess when the idle booster is supposed to come out, I'm sure they're gonna get a better stride, and Marid, I'm sure is gonna get replaced. Or it might be a stride that takes 4 spots too, or I don't know, 2 or 3. Just depends on the stride and how good it is. And so, you know, Negros is one of my fun decks, and I'm glad I was able to take it to locals and got second at least with it. So yeah, again, credit to Joseph Whitmore for his deck leads that he mentioned to me, and I actually talked to him and I told him about it, and he was happy that I actually did well, and we had a little discussion, and he actually started trying out King Serpent as well. So I guess it's just now a matter of tinkering a little more to make it more consistent and stronger. And I do advise trying out Nightrose. It's really strong, just because it's the fact that it's Granblue, that it can bring back units, and also that it's got some really good rear guard units and strides to access to, and it's what really pushes the deck even farther. And the clan itself, as you can see with 7 Cs, and it, you know, got me to like top 16 in nets. So then, without further ado, that's it, guys. Hope you enjoy my deck profile. Subscribe, like, share, and I'll see you next time.